But let me move on. I saw a clip on social media sometime last week where the Vice President, Bharrat Jagdeo, is railing over some other activity planned in Washington, D.C. by some diaspora organizations. And he make a lot of noise. I don't normally listen to him, but I listen to the parts of it. And you know what disturbs me? Is that the Vice President is there calling people criminals. He referred to, on one of those clips, he referred to former Minister Raphael Trotman as a criminal. I guess there is something to do in relation to this Exxon Mobil contract. And then he called Rickford Burke a criminal and making all other allegations that he extorting people and all kind of thing. I know what, again, let me say this. I all know brief for Raphael Trotman and Rickford Burke. I am sure they are capable of representing themselves as they have been doing. But let me remind people who is the person who is calling people criminals. Bharrat Jagdeo, the Vice President. A man who, during the course of last year, there was this startling revelation from Vice News, where they had this undercover operation, some people posing as Chinese businessmen, went into his living room to negotiate some deal. And the Vice News article is saying basically that they understand that the Vice President is involved. That's the allegation. An allegation that he's involved in these shakedowns where you got to pay as much as 500,000 US to get a contract. And hear the story. It is there on tape for us to see where Suzerang, a Chinese man, took these Chinese people into the living room of the Vice President. Understand this clearly. He took these people posing as businessmen into the living room of the Vice President. And the Vice President is on tape saying, look, Sue is the man who arranged these things. I only handle the government end and all this everything. That allegation of corruption, he claims that Sue is his tenant. And this is a tenant who has so close relationship that he can carry businessmen, people who are posing as businessmen, into the living room of the Vice President to negotiate some deal. And that is the person who is calling people criminals. That is the man. So understand what we're saying. As I've said, Raphael Trotman and Burke can represent themselves. But this thing, when you look at it, as I said, I made a note, some adjectives that can describe this conduct. I made a note of them, right? This thing is so odious. The statement from him is so odious. It is repulsive. It is revolting. It is detestable. It is abhorrent, loathsome, and repugnant for the Vice President of Guyana, Bharrat Jagdeo, to be calling people criminal, people who have not been charged with any crime. He's calling them criminal. And he had what I consider the most worrying allegation of a criminal nature leveled against any government official in Guyana. And this is the man who says, no, bear in mind, there was no investigation. And I said before, when you look at the video, when the person was interviewing the Vice President and set you up nicely, and then asks if he does take bribe, he said no. And then she asked him, who is Sue Giron? The man said, who? Sue? Oh, that is my tenant. And I said then, and I'm repeating, I am sure that the people who are involved in body language, the behavioral science, would have analyzed that and come to a conclusion as to whether he was speaking the truth or not. But the should not be going around calling people criminal and no evidence. People have not been charged. It is odious. And then here, this one, he likes to say people living in basement. That people are not as fortunate as him. He had his Pradoville one house. He sold that, it is alleged, for 600 something thousand US. And then other community developed, or was part of the community developed at Sparnam. And they get a house, other people get houses. So he could build a next big mansion, right? Yeah, he could build. People, he is that fortunate. But what is wrong with people living in a basement? I have visited some basement in the US, in the New York area in particular, well appointed, better than a lot of big houses and homes. Basement, well appointment. A lot of people, including many of his supporters, when they move to the States, that's the way they start. You start off in some basement with some relative and you work your way up. What is wrong with that? But he like to come and say, oh, people living in basement. And I want to say this. There are many basements that are better than some of those phone coops that they're building for people to live in. Call them whatever they call them, lower income housing or whatever they call it. So he's not going to stop. He's not going to stop because he like that, and his supporters perhaps like that, but they're not looking deep enough to see this is your vice president. Imagine how people who are sensible, especially in the international community, are viewing a vice president sitting there calling people all kind of names and all sort of things. So when I looked at it, I said, I have to address it. And then again, I say, I hold no brief for Rick Fordborough. I hold no brief for Raphael Chapman. They are both capable of representing themselves, and they have been doing so. But this thing, I felt the need to make a comment. CC, I can bring you in, but you don't have to make any comment. You know, you don't have to. Let me hear your views if you have any.
I must comment, Paul, because according to Jagdeo's analysis, I would say that when you are corrupt, you're not a criminal. But when you talk against wrongdoing, you are classified as a criminal. And the text don't lie, you know. I look at the Soviet, and there was a man who's fluent, a man who could rap laugh, a man who could parrot things. When you hear about show, you look at the body language or the traditions. I saw a bit of tradition, the body language, and the man started to stammer when he was an fluent speaker. And then I will consider me what we call, like a Dutch champion on both sides. Remember, prior to the last election, he said he wasn't seeking political office. This office failed to get a term. He said he wasn't seeking no political office. And today he's a vice president and ruling the roost. I saw a clip the other day with the former prime minister of England, Tony Blair. There was it, Tony Blair and Jagdeo sitting and have discussion, and the president stand up like a little boy, stand up next to them like a little boy, and the two of them are having intense discussion. So Jagdeo for me, I call him a Dutch. If you commit corruption and all kind of things there, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you talk against people, you're a criminal. So I agree with every word that you said, and I like your vocabulary in describing what took place.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. It's really, really bad. Really bad. But I'm not going to spend much time on him. Let me say this. The one truthful thing he said in recent times, is that he is vindictive. Somehow he had a little confession time, and he said that he is vindictive. That is true. At least I didn't hear him. He's alleged to have said that he is vindictive. It is if in fact he did say that he is vindictive, I can give evidence to that effect. I can give evidence that he is in fact a vindictive person. But then you say he's like a Dutch. Some people say you're insulting Dutch, because Dutch has its purpose, right? But that is what it is. Now let me move on.